Hello! Welcome to Stories for Wonderful Children. I'm Dan Wendelin, your host and storyteller. For many years, I improvised a new bedtime story for my children every night. In this season of Stories for Wonderful Children, we're playing the recordings from 2020, when I told them the story of Myra and the online school for adventuring. I hope you enjoy this story. Corin and Myra arrived at the fighter training grounds. Myra paused for a minute and just took in the sounds of it. She had been spending so much time sneaking and picking locks and stalking stalker llamas and such that she had forgotten the simple joys of the sounds of people hitting each other with practice swords. And so she just stopped for a moment and enjoyed. And then Corin turned around and said, "Are you coming?" "Oh, yeah," said Myra. "Sorry, I'm just taking it all in." He said, "Well, if you want, you can get a sword and shield and, we can go a few rounds." She said, "I might take you up on that, but first we have to find Doa." They looked around for a moment. It was not difficult to spot Doa. Everybody else was busy hitting each other with swords. Doa was a rather large woman, but other than that, she was sort of nondescript. She had brown skin, was wearing brown clothes, and had brown hair and brown eyes. And she was sort of sitting to the side, watching everything that the fighters were doing very carefully.
So she was essentially brown, but in the shape of a human. Like the color brown, but like human-shaped.
She was what you might think of as deer-colored. Corin and Myra walked over to her. She looked up as they approached. Myra said, "Hey, you must be Doa. Veer told us about you." "Yeah," said Doa. "And you must be Myra?" "Yeah," said Myra. "And this is Corin. He's a fighter student, and he has agreed to help you train." "Are the teachers going to be okay with that?" said Doa. Corin said, "Absolutely. As long as I'm hitting something, they don't really care what it is or how I go about it, for the most part. I mean, that's not entirely true. Sometimes we'll get technique critiques, but mostly, they say anybody who will spar with you is fine." "Great," said Doa. So Corin led them over to the practice swords and practice shields, and they all put on sort of face masks and helmets to be as safe as possible. And then they took a few minutes with the practice swords and practice shields whacking each other. And Myra and Corin demonstrated a few basic things like how you parry and how you riposte after you've parried and how to block with a shield. And
is it riposte or riposte?
It's riposte. The E is silent.
Is that an English way of pronouncing it or a French way?
I don't know how you pronounce it in French. It is a French word. It is probably an anglicization of a French word. So it's very likely that the French pronounce it in some way that makes it sound stabbing somebody really lovely and romantic, but in English less so. So after they had gone over some basic fighting techniques with Doa, and they were all sweaty and hot and felt like they'd had enough, they put the equipment back, and then Corin suggested that they walk up to the cafeteria and see if they could get Cook to give them some cinnamon rolls. And as they were walking up the hill to the kitchens, Myra said, "So Veer hasn't really told us much about life in the forest yet. What can you tell us?" And Doa said, "Well, what would you like to know?" And speaking at the same time, Corin said, "I want to know about Deer Church," and Myra said, "I want to know about string demons." And then they both stopped and looked at each other. And then Myra said, "How do you get your horns to glow blue?" And Corin said, "Why do you want to learn fighter skills?" And Doa said, "I think I'm happy to talk, but you all are going to have to pick one question." And Myra said, "Okay, well, tell us what you think we should know." Said Doa. "That is a good question. Here's what you should know. The forest has been here for a very long time. Far longer than the online school's been here. And there are things in the forest that are ancient, and remember the times before the school was here, and wish to return to those times." "Okay," said Myra, "so that sounds a little ominous." "Yes," said Doa, and didn't elaborate. "Okay," said Myra, "so where do the deer come into this?" "We believe that the forest should be a place that is safe for all, and we are also the guardians of the forest against things that are unnatural." "Like the string demon?" asked Corin. "Yes," said Doa. "Is that one of the ancient things in the forest?" asked Myra. "No," said Doa. "No, the string demon is a new evil. It has been there only a few years, and it has been growing in power as it seeks out and tries to absorb the powers of other natural creatures in the forest. We seek to put an end to it before it grows too powerful for us to do so. And we have decided to come and learn what we may from your school, for 2 reasons. "Oh?" asked Corin. "The first," said Doa, "is that perhaps some of the things that we learn will help us in our battles against the string demon." "And what's the other?" said Myra. "We seek allies," said Doa. "With the help of our god, we have fought the string demon to a stalemate. It has not been able to absorb other powers of the forest other than a stray spider now and then, but we have also not been able to banish it. We are hopeful that we can make the acquaintance of some of the faculty or even some of the students who might help us put an end to its evil." "I'll help," said Corin. "That is excellent," said Doa. "But," said Myra, "you're hoping for something more than just students." "Indeed," said Doa. "We are hoping to contact some of the ancient powers that live in your school, in the same way that we have tried to recruit those that live in the forest. They have arrived at the kitchens at this point." Corin knocked on the door. There was no answer. Myra said, "I'm sure she'll be along in a second." She sniffed. "I can smell cinnamon rolls, so she's got to be in there." "Do you think I should knock again?" said Corin. "Probably better not to," said Myra. Corin reached toward the door. His knuckles were about 1.5 inches away from it when the door was jerked open, and Cook leaned out, looking at each of them in turn, with her one large eye. "What?" she said. "Hi, Cook," said Myra. "Don't hi cook me," she said. "I'm busy cooking, as I'm sure you can smell. What do you want?" "Well," said Corin, "we had this new student here, and we were hoping maybe we could help in the kitchen and also could show her about the very best food on campus, your cinnamon rolls." Cook leaned forward. "That's not a student," she said. "That's a weredeer. What are you doing out of the forest, dear?" Doa said, "I'm here to learn." "Humph," said Cook. "Well, if you're going to learn, you better start with the important things, like how to cook a decent cinnamon roll. Come on." And so she brought them into the kitchen. And she had them rolling dough and sprinkling cinnamon and cleaning dishes. And then, as they sat there waiting for the rolls in the oven to come out, she said, "So why are you really here, dear?" Doa shrugged. She said, "I am here to learn and to make friends." "Friends?" said Cook. "Or recruits? These younglings here think they're all hot stuff, but they are not ready to head into your forest." "Well," said Doa, "perhaps there are others on campus who might be more prepared to face what lies in the forest." "Humph," said Cook. "It's possible. But right now all you need to concern yourself with is learning about cinnamon rolls." And with a flourish, she gave each of them a cinnamon roll on a paper plate, and she said, "Take those with you as you leave." And they realized that that was a dismissal, and so stood up and walked out. Cook closed the door firmly behind them. They looked at each other. "Well," said Corin brightly, "that went well." "It did?" said Doa. "Absolutely," said Myra. "She didn't toss us out, and she gave us cinnamon rolls. That is the best case scenario." "Okay," said Doa. "I was sort of hoping something more along the lines of, 'I will come help you fight the eternal evil in the forest.'" "Yeah," said Myra. That hasn't happened yet." "All right," said Doa. She reached down and took a bite of cinnamon roll. "All right," she said. "Now I have 3 missions. Learn, recruit, and figure out the recipe for these." "Yeah, good luck with that," said Myra. Corin nodded, his mouth full of cinnamon roll, swallowed, and said, "Yeah, you're far more likely to banish that demon than you are to get Cook's secret recipe." "Noted," said Doa. And they walked down the hill together, munching their treats. And that is the end for tonight.
Good story.
Thanks for listening to Stories for Wonderful Children. I created today's show, but questions and running commentary were supplied by my children. The theme music was created by Brandon Thompson, and our wonderful logo was designed by Silas Swindelin. If you know someone who might enjoy the show, please tell them about it. Do you want more stories? You can now subscribe to the show and help pick a new story for me to tell every month. The show's website is storiesforwonderfulchildren.com. Until next time, I'm Dan Wendelin, reminding you to tell someone you love a story.